In front of us, we've got a whole vine from left to right being 1.5 metres in this case. We have a trunk from the base of the vine up to what we call the crown. And the crown of the vine is the area at the top of the trunk where we find our either our canes or the beginning of our cordon section. Generally in the VSP, we'll go left and right out of the crown. Coming out of the crown, in this cane pruning instance, we've got 2 canes. Okay, so trunk, crown, canes are these mature 2-year-old now wood. The other structure that we have here is a spur, which is a 2-bud 2-year-old piece of wood here, from which there's a couple of 1-year-old canes coming out. So we've got 2-year-old cane here, 1-year-old cane. Trunk, crown, wood older than 2 years out of the top of this crown. This vine here is more than 25 years old. It was planted in the early 90s, 91 I think. So that's the structure in a general sense. More specifically, we have buds along the cane. What we call that bud area is a node, and then we have the internodal gap between buds. That's probably getting more technical than we need to, but that's really explaining pretty much the whole vine. Trunk, crown, canes, spurs, buds at each node, internodal gap between buds. That structure. Let's go to cane pruning. So when we talked before about what we're trying to achieve, in this environment, we've got factors in the environment. What are the factors in this environment that we've got in front of us? What are the things that this vine deals with in this environment? Weather, yep. So that's the environment above ground is the weather.
Well, if I look, we're on a hill here. From what I've felt is we're going down the hill this way, but the vines is planted that way. So maybe it holds water in a certain way and that maybe affects the rootstock.
Yep,
I don't
so
know if I'm thinking too far ahead.
Topography or geography, so the lie of the land.
Yeah.
Yep. So you got the above ground environment, the lie of the land. You got the below ground environment, which is soil. Yeah. Okay. So the vine's dealing with the above ground environment and the below ground environment. Now that's what this vine in this environment is the cause and effect, or the way this vine expresses itself through the soil and the above ground environment that it has. This is Chardonnay. So again, Chardonnay will deal differently in this environment that Pinot will, and Cabernet and Shiraz. We shouldn't say Cabernet because they don't really grow it here. But you'll find out why we don't grow Cabernet here if you plant it, because in this environment it doesn't ripen. So you need to know your environment to know how you're going to prune. And through experience, we understand that in this environment, in a 1.5 metre spacing between vines, we can produce a fairly balanced vine with good vigour in canes if we leave in the region of 20 to 24 buds on that vine. And if we're leaving 20 to 24 buds on that vine, we know we'll get reasonable expression out of that vine and we'll get balance of growth, which will give us balance of fruit. If we leave too few, we get too much vigour in those buds we leave. If we leave too many, we get too little vigour, too much fruit. So the leaf to bunch ratio is out of whack. So you grow short shoots with bunches on them. There's not enough leaf on that shoot to to ripen that bunch. There's too many bunches on the vine for the root system, the soil and the environment, and you don't ripen. So we're looking for balance of fruit and leaf in the environment that you have to ripen the fruit for the variety that you have. So there's a number of factors. So what we're looking for again is strength and position. Okay, those two words are really important, strength and position. We want to keep our crown fairly tight. You can see that these two canes have come in from a tight area. They haven't come out wide. And they're two strong canes. You can see that they're quite thick all the way through to the end. That's what we're looking for. So in replacing those two canes is what we would be doing in cane pruning, where we're going to remove those two canes and lay down two more. In doing that, we're looking for strong canes with good position. When I say strong, at least pencil thickness. So hold up your pinky. Probably as thick as your pinky, but not as thick as yours. So at least pencil thickness, okay? If it's not pencil thickness all the way to the length of the cane that you need to wrap, then don't choose it, look for another one. When we're wrapping canes, we may break one. So rather than leaving just two canes when we remove the old ones, we're going to leave more than two. So working our way out from the crown, we're choosing the best canes we can find. So if we just start from that trunk and look on our way out, we go, right, that one is a strong cane all the way out to a 0.75 metre length we need in that direction. That one is a strong cane. There's two. Okay. This one is strong, but tends to taper a little bit. But at the moment, we'll call that a third cane. A fourth cane here. You could say that was a fifth cane, but it was reasonably weak. And a sixth cane there that again is quite weak. So this, on this right side, this vine's a little bit weak. But at the moment, we know we have at least one here. So what I'm going to do is make a cut to leave myself those three options on the right side. You can see those three options I've got. Then on this other side, I've got two options here and a third strong option here. So I'm going to make another cut, which has left me three options on each side. As you become experienced with your pruning, you may only leave two on either side. If you're unsure in cutting and pulling out, it's always good to leave a little bit more than a little bit less. You can always come and clean up once you've wrapped. But if you're unsure of your option, just leave the extra one. Now you've made that cut, you've left yourself with what you may wrap, okay? The next process after making what we call the cuts is the pull out. For the pull out, you have your sunnies on, possibly your gloves. There's a zip tie here from last year. The other thing I haven't mentioned yet is this particular setup has got what we call an overwrap. So a 3/4 wrap, where the internodal distance between these buds on the cane have meant that to find our 20 to 22 buds that we're looking for, we're overwrapping through the middle. Okay, because the 1.5 distance isn't quite giving us the number of buds we want. If the internodal gaps are a bit tighter with a younger vine, we might drop it back so that each of the two canes don't meet in the middle. That's a choice in this vineyard that Hugh's made. And I can show you as we pull this out why that choice has been made. So when we pull out, to efficiently pull out a cane, if you start by unwrapping that cane as best you can and pulling down. Now once I've pulled down there, I can see how far I've pulled down with one unwrap, and that I can make a cut in one or two positions. So one cut there, and that whole cane's come out. I haven't made multiple cuts to try and get this base out. I've just made one cut, and I've taken out that whole length there. Drop it into the middle of the row for the mulcher to come through. Not under vine where you can't get the mulcher to come through. Again, same thing. If I want to take this out, I'm not cutting down here because I'm wasting cuts. I'll cut as high as I can to take out, cutting away there's one other structure that I didn't mention. That's tendrils, which like to grab, and you can see that's just pulled that right out. Again, do the same thing. Cut high, pull down. And you see I've cut the other one that was overwrapped as well, but that's fine. Normally you'd be working in a process across and that one might already be cut. Same on the other side, pull down. So I made 2 or 3 cuts there and pulled out the bulk of what's on the wire. There's a little bit left up here that you'd clean up before you move on. And you can see I'm looking at tendrils there that I'm cutting away to get them off the wire. Not necessarily the vine itself. You need to be careful in doing that. I'm not going to go bang and cut that one that's still attached. So you're looking at the tendrils. You might cut the top of that one off because you're not going to need the length. And again, being careful where that one comes from. That's unattached, so that's fine. Up here the same. Cut through a tendril. You can see I'm not actually cutting these canes so much as the tendrils that are holding them onto these wires. If you end up chopping away at canes, you're just sort of wasting your time and making lots of cuts, and a lot of stuff ends up down here. So there's nothing that's ended up down here. It's all in the middle of the row. Okay, so we've got to the point where we're going to wrap down. The choice to wrap down, again, position and strength. So we're trying to create that V position with the vine and leave ourselves at least 1 or 2 spur positions for next year. This vine doesn't have particularly great spur position. What I would call perfect spur position would be, you think about the vines, there's a root structure in this vine that's picking up nutrient and water and pushing it through the xylem and phloem in this trunk. As it moves up through the trunk, it has an outward flow. Like a tree or any plant, there's a flow that's going left and right through this main structure, through 4 or 5 year old wood, up to 2-year-old wood, up to 1-year-old wood, up to fruit, up to leaves. So that with that in mind, the flow structure in a vine, the best position for spurs are here, because you're getting good direct flow for good strong canes left and right of that vine. For various reasons, this vine over the years hasn't had that spur position, or it has had, and it's so old, and we've done some restructuring that it's in the process of finding good spur position again. This is a reasonable spur position, and there isn't much spur position on the other side. If you have good spur position, you then choose canes that have good flow, if you choose them out of the spur position in that year. If you have poor spur position, you have the possibility of choosing canes like this one out of what is possibly poor flow, because you've got multiple cuts in the top here which cause dieback in the top of the vine and create dead space in the vine, so interrupted flow. This external flow is really strong flow. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The more cuts that are made through that middle, the more depth you're having through that center, what you call the pith in the vine, or the central point around which the xylem and phloem flow, which are more external to the central point. That's a really important foundation in your head when you're leaving spur pruning, that sort of structure upward and outward. So having said that, there's a difficulty in this vine that's in the choices that we don't have that very obvious spur position. So we're still looking for strength and position. Okay, reasonable strength in that, but quite high and dislocated from the crown. Very good strength in that one, but coming out of that poor position. Pretty good spur position, and you can see 2 strong canes. Really good direct flow. It's quite obviously given very good canes out of that good direct flow we're talking about.
And does it not make a difference that they're both coming from the same spot?
As in the 2 canes are coming from the same spot?
Flow, does it not need...
Yeah, I'll talk about that.
Sorry.
We won't take the left and right from that one position.
No, because I thought you maybe take too much energy off the one spot, and that's maybe not good for the flow either.
Correct. Well, you have,
from what you were
a small amount of flow from there.
Yeah.
Yep. So what we're trying to do is leave ourselves with good position. So in thinking about this year and next year, which was your point, okay, I'm thinking about how am I going to leave a good spur position and still have good canes for this year. Okay, so I'm going to make a structural decision now that leaves me with good bud position this year and good spur position next year. And I'm going to say that's still a strong cane, even though it's coming out of what I don't like as a position. I'm going to use that this year. So if I use that cane to wrap here this year, so I've already made my decision in my head. I'm going to go right here with this one. Left here, this one looks very obvious to me to go left, okay? So if I decide my pruning decision is to go right here and left here, 2 strong canes with length, I have some options for where I can leave my spur. Okay, and I'm not gonna break these canes, so I'm gonna go ahead. Oh no, actually, the way we would. So the first thing I'm gonna do is wrap. Okay, and when I'm gonna wrap, I want to take out laterals. That's another word that I didn't use before. Any small 1-year-old cane coming out of a 1-year-old cane is called a lateral. Okay. And it's a non-fruiting from this year. It's actually a indication of vigor. If you're getting a lot of lateraling, you get a lot of vigor in the vine, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it might be a little bit out of balance with too much lateraling. So we're cleaning up the tendrils and the laterals on that vine, ready to wrap it. This vine, as I had mentioned, is a 3/4 wrap. So we're looking to get this cane wrapped 3/4 of the way along. So how do we know 3/4 of the way along? The easiest way for me is to put my foot down in between the 2 vines. I can see halfway really easily if I use my foot as an indicator. Now I look up and say, right, 3/4 is here. That's where I want to get this vine to, because we're over wrapping in this instance. If I was doing a halfway wrap, I'm obviously going to here. Same would apply in what I'm going to show you with a 3/4 wrap, how we're going to finish it would apply to the halfway. Okay, lots to take in, but I'm going to show you one other important thing. You can see this vine, the way it's naturally sat, is flowing really diagonally across this wire, leaving a lot of open wire. I really like, if it's naturally sitting there, I'm going to push it over the other side. See the way it stands up there and sits a lot closer to that wire? So where it's naturally sitting, you push it over the other side, it's going to stand up and naturally sit up on that wire harder. And that's a really good start before you prune. This is where I was talking about before, you need to put your secateurs away. You need 2 hands to wrap. If you don't use 2 hands to wrap, you'll break canes. You take shortcuts and try to manhandle a cane with 1 hand, particularly sitting against the wire, you'll break it. It's okay then with 2 hands to hear this. Hear that? You do that with 2 hands, that's fine. You're bending that in between the 2 nodes in the internodal gap. You're bending that right where it's going to fall over the wire. That's actually made it quite pliable now to push over. Different varieties are different amount of pliability, and even different clones with Pinot are as well. You'll find some just snap more, particularly cold mornings. So that's 1 wrap there. Without being tight, we're not trying to strangle this vine onto the wire. We're just wrapping it on 2 or 3 times. Again, where the wrap is, again, just a little turn like that, and then back again over the wire, another turn, back again, and you'll find it'll sit there quite happily because you've just given it a little bit of a tweak where it now finds its natural sitting point. Again, there's halfway, we're going to 3/4. When you're wrapping a vine, it will grow all these canes off this 1-year-old shoot during the year, and then will grow fruit. If you have a big year like 2019, where all the bunches were 150 grams, not 50 grams, that's a lot of weight on that cane. If we don't secure that cane, the fruit will pull that cane off the wire during the year with the weight of the fruit. So we need to secure it. We use zip ties or wire ties. These zip ties are biodegradable over a long period. They do take a while to break down, but they do break down. The wire ties are obviously biodegradable, being metal, and slow back down as well over a couple of years. At the 3/4 point where we want to tie it down, I'm going to tie it down before the last bud, because that's my 3/4 point at the moment, and you'll see what I'm going to do with the last bud in a moment. You'll need to have a close look at this. So I've tied that down before the last bud. That last bud is now constricted, so I want to get that last bud out. If you look closely, every bud along here has a black line through it. See that black line? There's a line you can see that every bud has moving across the cane. Can you all see that?
Yep, yep.
It's really obvious when you have a close look at it. If you cut directly through that black line, you take away the bud and you leave a flare. See that flare at the end? That zip tie can't come off now because you've left a flare.
Right.
And that is all dead wood. Okay, that wood is, there's no consequence to pulling that really tight, and that last live bud has good sap flow. Okay, so it's a really good tip for a lot of people. Put these on and not leave that flare at the end, and during the season people lifting wires are cursing them because there's vines popping off, there's canes popping off the vines, and they need to rewrap them. That's halfway. So let's get ourselves, now what I've done here too, I've come off a spur. I've chosen the high side of that spur for a good reason, because on the low side of that spur, I'm going to leave next year's spur. Okay, it's not a particularly well positioned spur, but as far as orientation, but flow, it's very well positioned. So I'm going to leave that for next year in the hope that I might start to turn this around in the year 3. So my 2-bud spur I'm looking for, and generally in this region we're looking for 2-bud spurs. When you go to spur pruning, you'll see that, is the first 2 clear buds I see. When you look at any cane, there's a basal bud, a primary bud, a first bud and a second bud. So when I say first 2 clear buds I see, the first 2 clear buds outside 0.5 centimetre from the edge of the cane. Okay, simple as that. 1, 2, cut equidistant between the 2 buds. So you've got a little bit of room for dieback, which I'll talk about in a moment. And that's a 2-bud spur. That 2-bud spur now has primary flow to flow 2 good canes from, and also this long cane that we've just wrapped. Okay, we'll go to the other side. This 3rd cane here is a little bit short and weak. I'm just going to get it out of the way. I'm going to choose this, what I would call reasonably poorly positioned cane, because I want to create good position next year, which I'll show you for a spur. You might be thinking ahead and seeing what I'm doing now that I've shown you that one, where you think a good spur position might be. Because I could take the option to wrap one of these. But this is a strong cane, and it's a strong cane because it's had good flow, even though it's out of a position that might at some stage have poor flow. So I'm going to choose it. Getting rid of the rubbish at the top there. And I know I'm about 3/4. I'm going to push that down below again. Now you can see it's naturally on this side. It happens to naturally be on that side. I would preferentially opposite wrap every vine. So this one has come from the back of the wire because I've pushed it to the other side. So from this side, whether it naturally goes here, I want to push it from the front, and I'll show you why. I'm bringing this cane around to the front and leaving it there, because once I wrap this on, that solidifies this whole structure. If I was to wrap them both from the back side of the wire, a tractor hits that, it's going to push it away really easily, or if someone, you know, a sweeper, whatever machinery might be in here, you're solidifying the structure by opposite wrapping, okay? So I would always choose to opposite wrap unless I really couldn't get that cane round without problem. So again, cracking, turning, cracking, and I've actually broken that one. So that was probably a weak point. And I'm happy to say, okay, I've broken that. That cane's going to have to go to halfway. Or I can choose one of these others, but I'm not going to, because I don't like the position or the strength of the other two. And that's a nice strong cane. So I'm going to drop a wire tie on that. You can see I've cut through the black line on the bud, leaving a flare. Spur position. Anyone got any ideas on a good spur position there, or the best spur position?
On the right hand side here.
Yep. Yeah. Again, outward and upward flow. A perfect position, a little bit high, a little bit distal or distant. You know, it's not, there might be the best spur position. We don't have it. So we take the best one we can, and that's a great position for next year to take a cane from. Okay, so we've got two reasonable positions next year for canes. Next thing I'm going to do is really important, is cleaning up the vine and the crown. You guys might have heard of your typer. It's a regression or dieback disease within the vine, which is a top-down issue that we have in vines. So every time you make a cut, you're going to have a dieback within that vine. So you need to leave the room for that dieback without it influencing the trunk and that good flow. So when we're cleaning up this top area here, wherever I choose to make a cut, I need to be twice the distance of the width. Okay, there's the width. So if I choose to take this wood out, I want twice the distance of that width away from the base. So that width, twice, cut away the wood. So my dieback now won't influence the main flow of the plant. Looks a little bit ugly, but it doesn't matter, because what we're doing is protecting the core flow of the plant. Again, here there's a little bit of cleanup of some wood. You could choose to cut this back. And there's nothing else really to do on this vine. A little bit of dead wood there. Look around for any suckers at the bottom, what we call suckers, which are laterals coming out of the base of the plant. Cut those away. In the end product of this vine, we're looking for a bud number which will balance the vine. So what we've done here in these pretty naturally balanced vines is come to a number of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 buds. Okay, and I said at the start of this, we were looking for that 20 to 26 bud number on these vines. I think that the aim in here was 24. So you get a fall 20 to 26. So that vine, we know over the years of experience in 25-year-old vines, will balance fairly well with that bud number. And I've made a big decision there straight away.
Why did you do that?
I don't have any strong canes on that. They're two really poor canes. So I've said, bad luck. Twice the width and length away, I'm cutting that away from the wood. Then I go straight up on this other arm, so I've got two options here straight away. that I know I've got. So I'm going to take that away. Can be reasonably violent when you're up in the high part of the canopy because there's buds there that you don't want. So here I'm lucky here that I've got two really good spur positions. I'm actually using these good spur positions to take the opportunity for this distal flow, and I'm going to cut that out of the way because I've got two good canes there that I'm happy that if I break one I've still got two good canes. Just gives me a little bit more room. Again, opposite wrapping here, so they're both on the same side, so I'm going to push this onto the other side of the vine. Two hands, a little bit of cracking. It'll sit there for me. Check where my halfway is. Cut through the bud. Clean up my vine. So I've gone from the outward or upward side of that vine. I see I've got a great two bud spur there on the good flow area, and same with this one, great two bud spur on the good flow area. So I'm lucky there that I've got two really good strong spur positions, really good flow. You end up sometimes with a really big crown at 25 years old that needs a little bit of clean up, but don't be disturbed that you're not using that crown because there's a lot of dead wood in that crown. If you're getting good flow, that's a good choice.